Thanks for coming. I'm Alan Sepinwall from Uproxx. I'm very excited to get to talk to the cast of The Deuce in front of you all. Let's start off as Cece, Gary Carr. As Abby Parker, Margarita Levieva. Head of casting, Alexa Fogel. As Officer Chris Alston, Lawrence Gilliard Jr. As Sandra Washington, Natalie Paul. Yeah. Rispoli. Yeah. So Alexa, since we're fortunate enough to have you here, I want to start off with some casting stories, sort of talking about, first of all, how many parts does this show have, both in terms of regulars and just significant people, would you say?
I mean, I honestly have no idea. It has so many more than anything else I do since The Wire. I'm not sure. I mean, we have so many series regulars and principal recurrings. We have a host of many, many. But what kind of casting stories?
Well, no, I want to sort of talk one by one about what you were looking for with each of these people and how they came, and then I want to hear each of the actors sort of tell their own memories of coming in to meet with Alexa.
I mean, most of these actors are actors that I've known for a long time and worked with on other projects. And the thing about David and George and Nina's projects is that the writing really is where you start about everything. That's the most important thing. So you start from character, and that's really what we talk about from the very beginning. I mean, I knew Gary because he had auditioned for Red Tails and Sam Cooke. Oh, yeah. Obviously, Larry was in The Wire. Natalie was in Show Me a Hero. Michael.
I am new to...
No. You were in The Black Donnellys.
Oh, well, with us, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, part of what you do as a casting director is you have this bank of great people that you try to bring to the best things you do, and I was lucky enough to be able to do this in this way. This was a very difficult part to cast, and I got very lucky, but it took a long time, and just a lot for all of us to do.
Why was that one so hard to cast?
I think it's always hard when you're working on something where there are, I mean, this is my view, when there are a lot of men in a cast and there are less women, I just think that it's just difficult. I don't know why that is. It's always proved to be. And I think this character was well-rounded, but how it was going to be ultimately formed wasn't clear to any of us until, and also it had to do with chemistry with James Franco and how that was going to work, how the director wanted that to work. So there were just a lot of pieces to it that had to, and this lady was very patient about going through all of the stages. And it was grueling, it was hard. I mean, I think from an actor's perspective, that's a hard process to go through and stay calm and deal with your nerves. And that part of my job is to manage that as best I can.
All right, well, Margarita, let's start with you then. What do you remember of the process? Did it feel sort of grueling and patience demanding from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, the first time, I don't know if I guess I can talk about this. I went in to audition for Candy's role. That was the initial audition. And then I got a phone call saying if I would audition for Abby, and I was traveling at the time and I had to make a tape that I just made with a friend in a hotel room very quickly. And I made the tape, and then I got a phone call saying that once I get back to New York, the producers would like to see me. And I went in and I'm not the best auditioner in the world, and I got really nervous. And, you know, I was fortunate that they were able to see the character in me, and I guess because they had seen the tape, and they said, you know, you can come back and audition once more. And I went in and auditioned once more, and I was still a bit nervous, and they were still able to see the character. And then I was asked to fly to LA to read with James, and that was the final part of the piece of the puzzle. So, but that was easier, yeah, because I had something to like really focus in on, and he helps with that. So.
Well, auditioning and acting can be different sometimes.
Yeah, very different animal.
Gary, when I talked to George a couple of weeks ago, right before the season ended, his recollection was you didn't come in for a specific role. They just knew that you would probably be one of the pimps, and then they figured out it would be Cece. What do you remember of the process from your perspective?
Yeah, I got sent the script and read it and loved it, and was told to look at the role of Cece, but like, yeah, maybe that was a discussion that it could have been anyone. But put myself on tape, like in some room in London, and then yeah, it was asked to like fly over like a few weeks later, I think, and went into the room with Alexa and George and David, everyone, and just found out like a few days after. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, as far as I knew, I was like looking at Cece.
Now, Lawrence, you go back with Alexa a ways here. You know, you have the longest experience, I think, with blown deadline of anybody on the panel, acting-wise. What?
Yep.
Did they still make you come in and read at this point?
Yeah, man, can you believe that? I was saying the same thing. I'm like, come on now. But you know what? I'll tell you. So, well, there's a few things. First of all, about 3 years before the show, I invited David Simon to come and have lunch with me because I wanted to try to convince him to do this comedy. I'm like, David, we've been doing dramas, man. Look, I got this comedy, this hot comedy. And so during that lunch, he was like, well, I'm actually right now, I'm working on this thing. I'm interviewing these guys. There's this guy, and it's this 70s thing, and it's this show about porn in New York in the 70s, but I don't think we have anything for you to do in it. And that was the lunch. And then a few years later, I get this call, and they're like, they want to bring you in for, and I'm like, ho, wait a minute, bring me in? Wait a minute, bring me in. They were like, yeah, it's for a cop. And I was like, okay. Nobody's seen me do a cop. I get it. You know, if it were one of the pimps or if it were, you know, a 70s drug dealer, I might go, what? But they're like, it's a cop. He's in the 70s. They want to see you. So I said, all right, I'll go in and I'll do my thing. And so I went in. I mean, you know, it was one of those things. I've worked with everyone before, with Alexa, David, George, all in before. And just like with The Wire, when I read The Wire, I thought, man, I got to get this part, you know, because you just don't read reading like that ever. So, I mean, writing, you don't read writing like that ever. So when I read it, I'm like, man, I got to get this part. And I just worked on it, went in, did what I could do, and then called Alexa every day. Until they finally broke the news, so. Yeah.
Natalie, when you were working on Show Me a Hero, A, what was it sort of like working with this production team? And B, did you get a sense that they were happy enough with your work that they might want to continue the relationship?
Well, that was an amazing, crazy experience where I just felt like, I don't know, like one day I was in grad school, the next day I was like on this set and I was learning everything all at once. And working with David and Nina and, you know, everybody from Show Me a Hero was incredible. It was nothing short of incredible. And it was really kind of honestly like a boot camp for working in this industry. I don't know, it was kind of crazy, like just having that much to do and to work at that level and learning how to work at that level was just invaluable. And so I think I didn't F it up. So, and, you know, they brought me in to audition for Sandra, and, you know, the rest is history.
And Michael, you've done a lot of different cable dramas, but you hadn't worked with this particular team before. What do you remember about coming in to do this?
Well, I came in and to meet Alexa. I mean, I knew Alexa, but I came in to read for Alexa, and she gave me the notes that came from the production team, you know, from Nina and George and David and stuff, and then we just worked on them to apply and applied them there. You know, you go on tape, you know, we're all actors here, so we all know that. So you go on tape and you're trying to figure out what you can do, but you always feel like you're in that little box, you know, when the camera's on the tripod right there. The difference with Alexa is that she gives you all the life when she's reading with you. She's reading with you, so it makes a huge difference when you audition with Alexa. So anyways, so Alexa puts you at ease, and then I tried to apply the notes as best I could. And then you just keep your fingers crossed, you know? Yeah. So.
Of these 5 roles, Alexa, which was the easiest to cast?
There are no easy roles to cast. Sorry.
Well, did any of them come in relatively early in the process and you saw them and you said, all right, this is the one?
Nope. I mean, I suppose, no. None of them were easy. I mean, Gary was a wonderful surprise, but he wasn't early in the process. But I think he was smoother than most. But no, it's not easy.
Well, what do you remember about Gary's tape?
Well, I mean, I've known Gary for a long time, and his British agent is one of my oldest colleagues and friends, so we've actually talked about him more than he knows over the years. She's very much in touch with me about things that he wants to do here. So he's always sort of somebody that I think about. You know, he was just easy with it. It was just something that fit for him. He understood the... I mean, you know this as actors, sometimes it just works, and you know, you need notes and adjustments, and he was comfortable with it. So
I mean, Gary, did you see something in the script about CC that sort of you were able to connect with fairly early on?
Yeah, actually, like I love his hustle, and he's extremely hardworking, but he's also very complex as well. He's got ambitions, and that was very attractive for me. He wasn't just a pimp. And anyway, like David's work and like George and Nina, like as a whole, like you read that stuff and you're like, I need to be a part of it. Like Lauren said, I really need to do this. And so you just approach it differently.
This crowd just got to, a couple minutes ago, finish watching the scene at the end of the pilot where Cece and Ashley are in the stairwell, and it's not a good look for Cece necessarily. No. What was the atmosphere like on the set for doing that? Like
super focused. Like Michelle was really I felt like we were there for like a long time as well, actually, in that position. And like Michelle was just like up in my face, like, you know, like get at her, like be angry, like just like make us like scared more, you know. And I don't know, we just like did it many times, but it just felt very focused. Like Jamie Newman, who plays Ashley, she's so amazing. It's really easy. Like when you're in scenes with her, it's really not a thing. So it was tough. It's cool.
Now, Margarita, you talked before about having to audition eventually opposite James, and you get to interact at least a little bit with the 2 Martino brothers at different times. Was your working relationship with him different when he was Vinny versus when he was Frankie?
Yeah, I mean, I joked around with him that I liked Frankie more. He's more my type. But yeah, I mean, James is incredible because he was 3 people for me. He was Frankie, Vinny, and then he directed 2 of the episodes. So he was also my director. And yeah, it was just so surreal because he just went in and out of character. And then, you know, when he was directing, he was able to like step away and approach me in a completely different way. And yeah, I was very impressed with him.
Well, I'm curious for any of you who want to answer, this show had a lot of great directors, starting with Michelle on the pilot. But when you have a fellow not only an actor, but someone who's your co-star who you've been interacting in this way, what is the comfort level? What's it like when he is then in that role, giving you each of you direction?
Well, he was very easy. I mean, you know, it's always, you never know what you're going to get when you're working with an actor as a director. You know, it's, I think it's a tendency for actors to, when you're watching actors, you know, you're critiquing, and it's a tendency to want to show them how to act, teach them how to act, to help them act, whatever it is that you're looking for. But with James, he didn't at all. You know, he was he became a director. You know, he was very easy. Well, with me personally, he would pull me aside, give me a note, step away, let me do my thing. You know, and I think that that's what you want as an actor. You want to feel free to just play and have fun and do what you know, do what you do. Have a director come in, step in, you know, give you a note or two, and then step out. And let you do your thing. And I just felt very free with him. It was very easy, you know, with him.
Michael, it looked like you had something to say.
Well, I mean, I'll just, you know, as far as with James, I'll say just what Lawrence was saying. He was really easy. You know, I find that with actors who are directors, you know, they kind of become an actor's director, and therefore they, at the best, they let you, they understand, you know, what's going on, your process. They kind of sense it, and then they allow you to do it. And James was really good at that. And as Lord said, like, he would step away. He might say a little something, and then he would step away and leave you to your stuff. And when you have that as an actor, you feel like you're being taken care of and listened to, and that just frees you even more to do whatever is needed. And then you just don't give them A, B, C. You give them all the letters of the alphabet, because now you're in your own skin. So, and James was great at doing that.
Natalie, you and Lawrence interact a lot over the course of the season. Was this a case where you didn't meet until production was going on, or you actually had to interact during the audition process?
Didn't meet until first day of production. I mean, it was, working with Lawrence was incredible because he has such a wealth of knowledge, and he didn't, you know, hold back in terms of like any questions I had. And it was just great. It made it weird for the like later half of the season. Cause I was like, you know, he's my friend, like, and my mentor. This is weird. No, it was a great experience to work with someone who worked on one of the like most incredible television shows of all time, The Wire. And, you know, to see the difference between those two characters and then his actual self and how he conducts himself on set and all these things, it was just a lot to observe. So yeah, it was great. It was sort of like intimidating at first, but I was like, now I'm gonna win him over. And you know, now I can say that we're friends.
Well, Alexa, in an ideal world, you'd get to do chemistry auditions with any set of actors who are going to be working opposite each other a lot, but that's not practical. So when you're casting these roles individually, do you develop a sense of, okay, Lawrence is going to work well with Natalie, or you just have to cast really good actors and hope they're going to have chemistry together? You
know, I don't actually believe in chemistry auditions. I know that's a little controversial, but I just believe that if you cast really good actors work well together. And I've been really fortunate. Oz, The Wire, Treme, most of the shows that I've worked on, the actors not only work well together, they have formed these incredible bonds. And I have no idea what it has to do with, but they're remarkably wonderful people. They're wonderful actors, but I just don't, I find that the problem with the idea of the chemistry read is that it's an artificial thing that's happening with too many people watching it. The actors are nervous, and I don't think that you actually learn as much as you can learn once people have a job, when they have permission to do the work that they're hired to do. So I discourage it a lot when I'm allowed to say what I think.
Alan, can I say something about that chemistry thing? So, I've had to do this, and it's worked out for me. You know, luckily, you know, it worked out for me the 2 times I had to do it. However, the difference was, and Margie, tell me if this was the way you felt when you were going. I had to fly out to LA to meet somebody one time to see if the chemistry was right, and I'm like, the fuck am I got to do that? I mean, because I'm hoping my tape, I'm hoping my live audition, I want the work to count, you know? Now, if he doesn't like me, I don't get the part, or if I look like the guy who beat him up when he was in 3rd grade, then I don't get the part. So I was hoping that I was nervous. It was very nerve-wracking actually, because I hope I'm cool enough. I hope I'm this enough. I hope I'm that enough. When I was doing my audition, I knew what I was doing, so I felt let the work go for itself. So both times it worked out for me. But I know what you're saying. It's a little bit
let me qualify that,
artificial. Go
because
ahead.
I think a work session is different than a chemistry read.
Okay.
And a work session is like a rehearsal. And that's when everyone has time to really spend hours together and get to know each other and do the work. A chemistry read is a totally different kind of thing. And sometimes they are a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But when they call it the first thing, it's usually about something that is also about something a little bit too artificial for my taste. And I want to be there to protect the actors in the process as much as I can. But it doesn't happen so much on the stuff that I work on.
Now, you worked with Lawrence 15 years ago. He's obviously been through a lot as a human being, but how has he changed just sort of as an actor over that time?
Alexa, I've been through a lot. You don't know, girl.
I mean, we've all been through a lot.
Yes, it's been a while for all of us, but just bringing him back into the family for this, did he strike you as an appreciably different performer than the first time? Okay.
Look, good actors are good actors, like good cooks, like anything. We evolve, we grow, we add a little bit more to it. But I mean, I think I keep saying this, it does come back to the writing. If the writing is really good and you are up for it, I mean, here's what I would say is that, well, I shouldn't say this. For all of us, we sometimes work on things that aren't written quite as well as this in between these jobs. And we're all capable of working on things this good, but we don't always have the opportunity to do it. I don't think that we're less good at what we do, but the writing isn't always there. So I would say that we all evolve as people and we get older and wiser. We bring a little bit more to the party, but yeah, he was pretty good then. He's pretty good now.
Speaking of getting older, Margarita, you're playing a little bit younger, at least in this season.
A tiny bit. Just a tiny bit than I am.
Teeny.
I wonder why it was hard to cast.
No, and David has talked about one of the reasons that they liked you was because they know that the show is going to cover about 15 years, and they trusted that you would be able to sort of
I can't wait.
Chart that journey for Abby. But like, what was involved in the process of sort of taking yourself back to college student age to channel that part of yourself or that part of the character rather?
Yeah, I mean, I really try to stay out of trying to play younger because I feel like that doesn't really work. And, what Alexa just said, I feel like when the material is good and the writers are that good, it's sort of on the page. All you have to do is say the lines and the voice is already there. The only thing for me that I think was a bit of an issue is just because I am so much older than I was playing, sometimes I felt like I had to hold back some of my own stuff or some of the progression that will happen as Abby gets older in the show, and trying to, modulate of, would a 20-year-old really go this far with either anger or knowing something? There's an experience that comes from living life for some years, hopefully. And so sometimes that just was something that I was a little bit aware of, but it was really interesting to go back to the campus that I went to school at, 15 years ago. So, yeah.
You made it.
Yeah, totally.
Michael, you may have, this may be an exaggeration, you've played a few wise guys over your career at different points.
Yes, I have.
So,
I'm either a cop or a crook.
and obviously every character is different in some way. What was it about Rudy that you looked at and said, all right, well, this is who this guy is. This is what's going to make him special for me.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. I don't think you guys saw Rudy in this. this is the pilot, right? So Rudy comes into the next episode, is when his character gets introduced. A big difference was, which was some of the notes that came from Alexa, and obviously from, David, George, and Nina and everything, is that my character comes in, but they want more of a businessman wise guy. So as opposed to, am I right, Alexa? Wasn't it more of a businessman wise guy? Well, that's what I ended up playing all season, so I hope it was right. But as opposed to, well, listen, The Sopranos was a great show, and it had its time, which was great. But that was a little bit different. This guy's more interested in the numbers and the profit and where that comes from. And whatever happens with Rudy, the character's name is Rudy Pipolo, and everything has to do with the money to be made, the business to be had. That's what it's all about. That's what the enterprise is about. So, so that would be the difference in this character here. It's not the same macho posturing, possibly, of otherwise guys I've played.
Gary, you've played American before, but just accent-wise, this period, this moment, this sort of persona that CeCe has adopted for himself, was there anything different that you found yourself doing with the dialect from other times where you've done American?
The only main difference would be the accent itself from the other ones I've done, but the approach is like pretty much the same for everything. I work with a really great dialect coach called Jerome Butler. I think he's worked on many productions before with George and David and Nina and Alexa. But like, it's about the musicality for me. Like, we like to do like really detailed work. He's an African American from 1970s in New York. And Jerome wanted to be more specific as to where in New York, but I don't know if we got that far. But yeah, like the musicality and the rhythms, all that stuff. We listen to everything, music tapes, documentaries. But yeah.
In general, when I talk to foreign actors who play American, each of them has sort of a different kryptonite when it comes to the accent. It's a certain word, or if I get angry, my Australian slips out, whatever. Right, is there anything for you that you find challenging in that respect?
Sometimes if a line changes, like at the last minute, I can feel like a fake. I'm like, oh shit, like, sorry. Like I can't, like, I should like be able to adapt, immediately and like apply everything I've learned to like this dialogue here. But then it's like sometimes a bit difficult, and you like start to panic and you second guess yourself. Have I got the vowel sounds right, or is this the right rhythm? So sometimes, yeah, last minute changes.
I'm curious for all of you about your relationship to this period before you became attached to the project, because none of you, other than Michael, actor-wise, would have been through this version of New York at any point. So
whoa, brother. No, he's not off by that much either. No, I listen.
You could have gone through as a kid.
No, brother, I hear you. I knew this. I knew that time. I was, because it was that same way for a number of years. So, but I caught up with it. And frankly, when I moved into the city, it was 42nd Street was still, there's boarded up places. I mean, none of the New Amsterdam Theater was. I used to walk by and go, I want to go up those stairs one day, but it was just, it was all boarded up, right? Everything was like that. There was a great little hot dog place right by the subway that had been there for years and years and years. A little, crappy little donuts and everything and coffee, but it was a great. I mean, I loved it. To be honest, I loved it. It was like, it had so much character. And anyways, the show just captures it all, But that was a few years later, though, for me.
Can I go back to something?
Sure.
Because you just reminded me of something. So you asked me what the hardest part to cast was?
Yes.
Nina, what's Tariq's character's name?
Reggie.
Yes, that was the hardest part to cast. Because he spoke in pages of monologues. I mean, pages and pages, and it was impossible to do. And if you notice this, many of the pimps are musicians.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I was so desperate that I thought we're gonna have to find someone who's musical, because the only way to get through this is if you have that kind of understanding of that rhythm. And the truth is, the way he ended up auditioning for that was an accident in the beginning. But we don't have to go into that. But I think the writing for these guys was incredibly beautiful, but it is so specifically like great plays are written like music. And there's a reason why Method and these guys are so good with that kind of rhythmic ability to be able to do it for pages and pages, and to do it with each other. When you see that scene in the barbershop, I mean, that is beautiful.
I mean, you've done a great job over the years, going back to Oz, of casting, rappers and singers in acting roles.
One, just Method.
I'm trying to remember. I thought that Oz
Maybe a
had some
few
more.
in Oz, but he's the real deal.
Fair enough.
Hardest worker.
But getting back to the period, for the rest of you who didn't get to visit the city in the 70s or even the 80s, when
Well, I did.
Okay, all right. So, what are your memories of it, Lawrence?
When I was a kid, I would go through Times Square just with my parents. I'm dating myself a bit because I do remember like early mid 70s, but they got the feel right. I mean, the feel is right, with the trash all over the ground, the papers and I remember the theaters. For me it was like, ooh, wow, Times Square. What's XXX mean? But one time my dad took me to see this movie. My mother could have killed him. My dad took me to a theater in Times Square to see a movie. It was a double feature, man. It was, they showed these two B movies. One of them could have just been a C or D movie. They were horrible, but yeah, it was real seedy, just dirty, grimy. It was just grimy, and I was afraid the whole time I was there.
I was heartbroken when Show World closed. I mean, that was the end of it. I moved here in 1980. It was so sad when that was the very, very end.
That was around for a long time too.
Yeah.
I mean, that was around for a long time.
Juliana.
That was, listen, in the pilot, I'll admit to something. The scene with all those guys in the kids in the car in the station wagon. So I grew up in Rockland County. It's half an hour away, but we're suburban kids, So whoever had the car, whoever had the license, it was 16, you could drive, and it was boring up there. And we'd say, let's jump in the car, and we would go down, and we wouldn't get out of the car, but we would. I'm serious, no. But we would drive around 8th Avenue, 9th Avenue, everything, and look at the girls. I mean, we're a bunch of guys who were, 15, 16, whatever. And the thing was, if you stopped at a light, the girls would come up to the car, and they go, hey, what you boys doing? You want a date and everything? We didn't get out of the car, but it was, it was exciting. And then we'd get out of the city, so. But I'm talking 75, something like that, 76, so not much different. So when I saw that scene in the pilot, again, I wasn't in the pilot, and I was treated to the pilot like you guys were tonight. I'm like, whoa, they got that right, man. That's exactly right.
How much input did any of you have on the wardrobe, the hair, any things about the actual look of your characters?
I think I got to choose between 3 afros.
And how did you choose? How did you choose?
I chose the biggest one.
Well, okay, so let's talk about the big afro then. What about it sort of A, said Sandra, and B, said 1971 to you?
Well, actually, at first, I had to ask a few questions because when I was doing my research, I wasn't sure if a Black woman could actually be a journalist and have an afro. I mean, we have cases more recent than that of hair in the workplace. So I had to make sure that could have happened and how that could have happened. And I talked to George about some of his experiences, and he has so many stories about just that time period and working as a writer. And of course, I talked to David about being a journalist. So first I had to kind of check that out and make sure like she was safe and she could be that way. And we had to kind of talk about Sandra being more of a maverick than some of the research that is actually out there about being a female journalist in the 1970s. The field at that time was actually pretty conservative. I mean, it is, pretty conservative. So that was one thing about it. And because she was such a maverick, I felt like that hair actually really worked. And that she was doing this thing that was very traditionally by the book and in line with what her parents might have wanted. But the stories that she reported on is where she took the reins in terms of her individuality and her spirit and what she really wanted to expose and speak truth to power. Just trying to do both, like that she was not these girls, but she was not judgmental about them. She was interested in them and wanted to, learn more about them.
Gary, Cece has a pretty amazing wardrobe. Just sort of the shirts and the jacket and the hats, and the accessories and everything. How useful was all of that stuff to you in the process of building the character?
Yeah, that was brilliant. Like I love, like anything that's like, I work off visuals. Like I react really well to that. And there's a book, Gentleman of Leisure, A Life in the Year of a Pimp, which is that was a great reference, a great visual reference for wardrobe and myself, and it's a great photo essay actually of this pimp called Silky, and I saw like a lot of those the same styles pop up, and it just made it very real for me. Like Lawrence was saying as well, like the detail, like we're on set and you like the trash is on the streets, but the trash is like a paper or an article from the 70s or that time. Like those details are really super important. It just allows you to portray, I guess, the world in a more realistic way. You really feel in the world when you get all those details and high quality work.
Did any of the rest of you have any kind of touchstone, whether it was a book, whether it was a movie of the period or a song or something that you would look to say, all right, this is 1971 to me, this will be a thing I'm thinking about when I'm doing this?
I had a song because I knew that during that time in the 70s, the police, the force, it was pretty corrupt, It was one of the most corrupt periods for the police force. So I had this one song. I had a whole list. I created a whole list of songs, all #1 songs from that year, right? And but my song that I would go to was that song "Smiling Faces." So that was sort of my Austin theme.
One of the recurring themes over the course of the season, particularly for Sandra and Chris and Abby, is characters asking the different prostitutes, why are you doing this? Why do you do this? Not only do this job, but endure the abuse of men like Cece. And they never really get a satisfactory answer. And I'm curious to any of you, over the course of doing these 8 episodes, do you feel like you got a better understanding of this world and why people, entered into it, or in some cases still enter into it?
Yeah, I mean, and back to that question about playing younger, and I feel like what really helped with, Abby's trajectory in the first season is really, she's so new. She's new to New York. She's new to this world. She's new to Times Square and these people. And, she's a bit of, even though she's really smart and wise, there's still a bit of a fish out of water quality where, like, she's testing out her sea legs and meeting these people for the first time and really trying to figure out what they're about. And, she comes from such a limited background as far as the kind of people that she's been around. So I think for Abby specifically, it was, this idea of she's the first wave of these emancipated women that got to say, like, I'm not going to be my mom. I'm not going to be my grandmother. I'm not going to be the woman that just gets married and tends to the family. I want to find something different for myself. But for her, so much of that lays in the power of a woman's brain and ability to do the same things that a man can do. So when she meets these prostitutes, initially the reaction is, it's baffling. It's like, why, as a woman, with so much ability and talent and strength. Why would you surrender to something like this? Why would you live and position yourself in a place like this? And I think what becomes apparent to Abby through the season, and which was also so interesting for me, is that, and I think what excites her about the world is that they're making decisions and they're standing behind their choices. And this is, you know, for many of them, they're being very true to who they are, which for Abby was, I think, exciting, coming from a world where there's so much hypocrisy and people are not being authentic and not being true to themselves. So, yeah, I don't know if I fully answered that, but.
Natalie, go.
This is why the writing is so good. But so you have like what Margarita was just talking about in terms of the individual choices, but Sandra was looking at like the systems. And I think that is what is most revelatory for me, Natalie, because it's like, it forced me to learn more about the systems that support these individual choices. And so like that aspect of the work, it just made me that much more interested and inspired by what journalists do, the ones that actually do speak out about these systemic injustices and things that are in place and ran by people who have far more options than the girls on the street. So I thought that was just so brilliant how they attacked it from all ends.
Now, one of the sort of running questions over the course of the season about Sandra is how much is she actually using Chris and how much does she maybe like this guy? Did you figure out over the course of the season where the line was, what the ratio was?
Me?
Yeah.
You know, I think I felt like when I read Sandra in the audition, the first thing I got about her was that she was ambitious. That was her #1 character trait, I guess, and that her wanting to break a story was #1 in her mind. So, but I think through the course of chasing, you know, it's sort of like when you chase something, something else chases you. You know, you put yourself in the game of give and take, and I think while she's chasing the story, this other thing kind of happens to her too. So I don't know. Has everybody seen the whole season? I don't want to ruin it, but I do think that there's something. I don't think she knows all the time. But I do think that the story is what brings them together, and whether that sort of poisons their or not their relationship is what's at stake, I guess.
I'm curious what the atmosphere is like on the set, especially with a cast this big, and the characters scattered throughout, and every now and then everyone will come into the bar. But overall, like, how much just do the 5 of you get to interact over the course of production versus at events like this?
Well, I have not interacted with Natalie or Lawrence or Gary.
We had a scene.
We had a quick thing.
A quick one, yeah.
Thing. You know, it's a big cast. It's a big cast, and it's just a tremendously talented cast, and everybody has their thing to do. So when I go to work, you know, people will ask me, oh, I've seen you in this, I saw you in that, I saw you in this. What's your favorite project? And a lot of times, my answer is always a project that I like going to work every day. You know, because there's some projects you go to, and you go in there and you're doing the best work you can, but it's not the best work environment kind of thing. This is a great set. You know, I mean, you come to work and you're excited when you get the script, and you're excited about the scenes you're going to be doing that day. And I may be passing Natalie or Lawrence, because they just finished. Now they get to go home, and then now I go in with whoever I'm going to be working with. So, and it's great to see them because I got to hold on by my fingernails because I know they just killed it, So it's a great place to go and work, Was that anything like what the question is?
That was absolutely the question. I don't know, for anybody else?
No, he pretty much nailed. I mean, I don't know if anybody. You pretty much nailed it. I mean, you know, having worked with these guys twice, you know, it was, for me, the only thing is that's a little different is the first time, you know, I didn't really know, I was a bit intimidated by David and George and Nina, and, you know, I'm like, holy crap, you know. What was great this time was there was a whole set of new people who never worked with them who were coming up to me like, can I talk to him? Can I ask him a question? Like, what do you think? So, you know.
And what would you tell them?
I'd say, yeah, nah, man, don't talk to him right now.
You'd be like, don't even look at them. Don't even
when
look in their eyes.
he's looking down like that, don't touch him, man. Don't say nothing. No.
I'd say
No, you know, go ahead. They're great, man. They're so easy. They are so easy, man. And that's what makes it so great to work with them, you know.
Gary, you were gonna say?
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, I mean, and the fact I haven't worked with any of the team before, and so and this is like I think it definitely is the biggest thing I've done. And so it's really encouraging for me, like, to come to a set like this and everyone's so down to earth and so humble and about the work and so great at what they do as well. That's the best feeling. Like, yeah, it was actually really painful when I wasn't on set. And it's like you said, it's an ensemble cast, many storylines, so it's not just about me. But there would be long periods of time when I wasn't on set, and that was so painful. Like, I felt like in detention or something, or just wanted to get on set. Couldn't wait. Amazing.
All right, so we have some questions from the audience. The first one's from Brian Wolf, and this is for Alexa. Outside of your casting office, who else is a part of the decision-making process when it comes to casting?
On this show or on any show?
I would assume on this show.
I mean, really? It's that village. It's David and George and Nina and, in this case, Michelle. And I suppose HBO gets to clock in at the very end. But, it's us. And then we include them at the end.
All right, this one's from AJ Franklin for Lawrence. How did you prepare for your character? Where did you look for inspiration?
You know, I went to the internet. I looked up, you know, pictures, the time on the internet, but I watched movies. I listened to a lot of music. I'm a music guy, so it's all about music for me. Listened to a lot of music, watched a lot of movies. I watched Serpico, of course. I watched Across 110th Street. I watched some movies that I thought, you know, I'm like, all right, if Austin's around, what movies would he have watched? I watched this movie called Five on the Black Hand Side, I think it was called, you know, all those blaxploitation films. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did. And talk to police officers. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to understand was what it is that makes a person want to be a cop. And all the cops I talked to, they all said the same thing. They have this overwhelming desire to protect and serve. That's really what they all want to do. Now, once they get that job, you know, they can go in different directions. You know, you never know where it's going to lead you. But they all start out just wanting to help people, you know.
All right, this one's from George, also for Alexa. What is something that an actor should not do in the audition room?
Yes, please tell me now.
Anything you wouldn't do in life that would be strange and inorganic when you're meeting people for the first time. You know, it's like there is no magic thing about this. It's all common sense. It's just about being polite, doing your work, preparing, and not, you know, spitting on the floor. It's really simple. There's no secret. It's really just about behaving like a well-brought-up person and doing your work, and there's nothing complicated about it. Don't take any classes where someone tells you there's a secret. There's no secret.
Now I want to know the craziest thing you saw in an audition. I
did have a 6-foot bunny come to my office with his or her resume once. That was a long time ago.
Did the bunny get cast?
The bunny didn't make it past security. The craziest thing anyone ever did in an audition. No, two things. There have only been two terrible things in my very long career. I was casting a production of Fences, I think for the Jiva Theater, and in the scene with the confrontation between Troy and the son, the actor lost control and he hit the reader. I know. See, only in a room full of actors would you know that, because it doesn't happen in the play. He threatens it, but he never does it. And I thought he was going to kill him. So that was many, many years ago. And the only other thing that's happened is that I was casting, this is when I was at ABC, this was years ago. I was casting some thing, and an actor like pulled out a toy gun without telling anybody, like in the scene, but it didn't look like a toy. So there's the only two horrible things that have ever happened in 20-some years of casting.
So don't
So
spit
don't
on the
do that.
floor, don't pull out a gun, don't hit the reader. All of those are no's.
Yeah. So assuming, so those are the things not to do in an audition.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's for Rita, and this is to the whole cast, anyone who wants to answer. She's curious about, filming, specifically on this show, nude scenes, sex scenes. There's a lot of verisimilitude to it. Just sort of how you approached it, what the atmosphere on the set was like, how you achieved that effect, I guess.
Well, I'll go first. I mean, they're incredibly respectful, and it's usually it's always a closed set, so you don't have, you have minimal amount of crew. And as far as, for me personally, I haven't really done that much nudity ever before. And, the thing that I always kept in my mind was that it was serving the story, and I was doing this as Abby, and for Abby, whatever the scene was, that was the necessary thing to do. And it was especially helpful, I think it was maybe episode 3 when I had to, after doing the pilot, I had to get naked again. And, when I first read it, I reacted, and I was like, oh God, I can't believe I'm gonna have to keep doing this. And then I had a conversation with Nina and George and David, and I asked them why I would have to get naked again. And they said, Abby is one of the few women in the show that actually gets to have sex on her own volition, is not getting paid for it. And not only that, she's the representation of what 1971 would have been like for a 20-year-old. And when I heard that, that was really helpful, because when I went to work, it just gave me that ammunition to remember that I was telling the story that was important to tell. And then it wasn't as difficult getting naked, which we all had to do, I feel like.
I would say, oh crap, I just had it in my head. With nudity, this is what it was. What I love about the show is that although it's pretty clear that sex work is very dangerous, and there's a lot of problems with it, and it's clearly depicted in the show. It's also a show that kind of pays homage to sexuality. It pays homage to nudity and vulnerability and all the things that happen in a bedroom between 2 people or 3 people sometimes. And I think that was another aspect or theme of the show, and also theme of that time that I embraced working on this project, that the 70s sort of is this time where people were also, liberated and open and free and proud. And so keeping that in mind, at least as a theme, was helpful, that it wasn't just about me. It was about something, that we were servicing and bringing to light through this show.
I'd like to say this too. So on the show, and hopefully you guys will watch all the show, the whole season, and then continue on, because it's really a tremendous show. I'm always blown away by the actresses in the show, because when I saw the pilot, I didn't know anybody. And when I've done a lot of movies and stuff. When nudity generally in the movies that I've been in and projects I've been in, when they need somebody naked, they will hire, they will get strippers or, dancers and stuff. They're very comfortable with doing it. They're naked in front of crowds. And when you have the crew and everybody around, it's easy. So you do, I don't know how many scenes I've done in movies that were in topless bars and stuff. And there's girls there, 6 o'clock in the morning, they're just in the G-strings and they're dancing over and over and over in the background and what have you. There's acting going on here in this show, and the girls are, either naked, half naked, in acts of, different, acts of sex and stuff like that. And these are all actresses doing this, and I just think they're tremendous and courageous in what they do. I've never been asked to act naked. I don't think I can act. I don't think I could be naked and act in front of the camera. So when I see the girls doing this, and I'm calling them girls, so please forgive me. The actresses. When I see them doing this, I'm just kind of blown away by it because they are so real and courageous, and they're doing it for the characters that are there with the writing that's on the page, and I just think it's tremendous that they can do that. So.
Gary, somewhat related to that, Margarita talked before about how when Abby has sex, it's of her own volition, it's something she enjoys, which is a relative rarity on this show. For the most part, sex is a transactional thing. We see Cece, interacting with Laurie, with Ashley, but the relationship is different. He's their pimp. He's keeping their money. He's controlling their lives. When you would do the sex scenes with them, what do you remember both about like the direction, the atmosphere, your interaction with your co-stars in moments like that?
There's only actually like one scene where that happens. I think like episode 2.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Between me and Laura, yeah. And in for that particular scene though, it wasn't really even about that. Straight after we have sex, Laurie and Cece, he goes off, like, starts speaking about, like, all these really deep things and, like, his ambitions for life and where he wants to go, and he includes her in on that. And I thought there's so much more other things going on at that point. But at the same time, I think it's genuine. Yes, he's the Mac, he's the pimp. That's definitely a perk to being a pimp. But I think he genuinely has feelings for Laurie, and he cares about them. They're a family.
It's sort of an interesting thing to balance, because again, we see what he does to Ashley at the end of the pilot, and yet he does sort of believe that he cares about her and he's doing this for her own good. I'm curious, like, how much wrestling you have to do with his motivation over the course of playing the character.
I feel like in a way, like, even though it's complex, it makes sense, because I don't think he ever I don't think there's one minute where he doesn't care about any of his girls. It's unfortunate that he controls them the way he does, but that is the game, and they're aware of that as well. They understand the dynamic between them. It made perfect sense. He loves them, but it's tough love, and that's the way he knows how to keep his control and power. And also there's the business side of it, which is, listen, we're in a business together, and you have to do your part. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's his mentality. That's where he's coming from, and we have to make money always. It's about the money.
We've only got a few minutes left, and we've got a couple more questions here from the audience. One is from Lance. This is also for Alexa. If an actor prepares a scene for an audition completely outside the box, because everyone is going to go in and audition the obvious interpretation, is that a benefit or downfall of a choice?
I don't know how to answer that question. For me, it's about honoring the writing. It's not about being outside the box or in the box. It's about paying attention to what's on the page and doing your best to honor that. I've been lucky enough to work mostly on things that are well written. So being different isn't better for its own sake. It's really just about bringing something to life in the best way that you possibly can that serves the character in the most real and naturalistic way that you can.
All right, and then one final casting question for you. When you have someone like Lawrence come in 15 years ago for D'Angelo, or you have somebody like Dominique Fishback come in for Show Me a Hero, do you know instantly, like, this is someone that I'm gonna work with a lot, hopefully, if I'm lucky?
I mean, eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no thing like that. Like if you believe in love at first sight or anything like that, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a process. I mean, you absolutely know the difference between someone who's good and someone who's not good. But in the group of people who are good, then it's about the marriage of a good actor with good material and how that works, and that's a process. You know, there are actors, really good actors, who take years for me to hopefully find the right part for, you know, and that's important too. So there are people waiting in the wings, you know. I do think, yes, of course, when you're lucky enough to, I mean, you know, when we cast The Wire, most of these actors read for several roles. It was not obvious who was going to be who in any way, shape, or form for any of us in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you're lucky enough to run across good people, you hope you'll be lucky enough to, you know, have something to do with their careers going on again 15 years later.
I mean, I was going to say, you know, I mean, what Alexa's great at, first of all, she's great at spotting talent, but also she's great at spotting what's right. You know what I mean? Because, you know, before The Wire, I'd auditioned for Alexa. And I don't think I'd gotten anything, but then I got The Wire. And then since The Wire, I've auditioned for Alexa. You know, I've seen Alexa again. And, you know, but for whatever reason, it wasn't right. It just wasn't right. But for this one, it was right. So she's great at that, you know, just knowing. And there have been times when I didn't get a role and I see the person that she's gotten and I'm like, okay, I see. You know? So it's just, she's just brilliant that way. She knows what's right. You know?
Part of your job as a casting director is to have a bank of great people that you are keeping going for years until it works. You know, it's not like you're one and done. But it takes a long time sometimes to redo that.
Well, you talked before about how Gary, you'd sort of been looking for a part for him for a little while.
You don't do it that way.
Okay.
Well, yes, maybe you do. I mean, Gary was a good actor. He'd auditioned for, I mean, you know, Red Tails was a long time ago. Yeah. But also sometimes actors are too young and they need to be at the right age for things, and yeah.
But I'm just curious what the feeling is like then when he comes in and it's finally, you know, good actor, good match with the part.
It's always a good feeling when it works. That is always a good feeling. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's incredibly satisfying when you've known someone for some time and they get a role. I mean with Dom Fishback is a great example. I mean, she's somebody who's incredibly talented, whose life is certainly, the trajectory of her career has been altered by this group of people and the writing that she's had for both of these projects. That's hugely gratifying, personally, but, you know, professionally too.
All right, well, that seems like a good note to end on. Thank you very much. The cast of The Deuce.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.